Hey guys, it's Pro. Welcome back to another video. Today in Fallout 76, I'm going to be making a guide on how to launch a nuke. So I'll go ahead and walk you guys through running a silo step by step. And we're not going to be using any glitches or exploits for this guide, just a heads up. And it is going to require max picklocking and max hacking in order to do this silo run, and we'll also talk about getting the silo codes and getting the silo keycards and proper nuke placement or optimal nuke placement, and essentially how you can do 5 bosses with 3 nukes on a server. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, I also want to mention that before you can run a silo and before you have access to silos, you are going to need to be a Enclave General. And in order to be an Enclave General, you do have to go through a couple steps, and then you can actually become a general and start launching silos. So I'll go ahead and have a link to that guide in the description. That way you can get prepared and qualify to actually launch nukes. But let's go ahead and say that now that you're an Enclave General and you're ready to run some silos, I'll go ahead and walk you through it. Alright, so prior to actually running the silo, we're going to go ahead and go through like this pre-silo checklist. First, are you an Enclave General? If yes, then move on. If not, become an Enclave General. Step 2, do you have a Nuclear Keycard on you? And you can go ahead and navigate to the MISC tab. I know it's covered by my face cam, but under the MISC tab, scroll down until it's the end section if you're sorting by just regular letters by the alphabet. And I do not have a Nuclear Keycard on me. But if you did, it would be in this section right here. So I don't have a Nuclear Keycard, so let's go ahead and grab one from my stash. Nuclear Keycards can usually be awarded by just doing the scoreboard, so you should probably already have some. But in the case that you don't, we'll go ahead and walk you through getting keycards. Right here, I've got 16 nuclear keycards, so we'll just grab one for the purpose of this video. Or you know what, I'll grab a couple. Sometimes silos can be a little bit glitchy, and you might have to use one or more keycard depending on the situation. So I'd always bring maybe 2 to 3 keycards, even though you're only running one silo at a time. That way you will always have backups and you don't have to go through the entire silo again in case you mess up at the very end. But I'll go ahead and talk about that a little bit more once we actually get into the silo launching. So you're an Enclave General, you have the silo keycard. Now do you have the corresponding silo? And there is like a whole method of getting the code through the in-game means, like you kill these code carriers, you collect their codes, and then you have to decipher it. But to be honest, not many people that I know actually use that method, and so in this tutorial I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how most people just do it, which is grabbing the code off of the internet. So this will be linked in the description, but this is a website called Nuke Crypt, which will, generally speaking, always have the codes updated per week. So there are 3 silos in the game. There's going to be Alpha Silo, Bravo Silo, and Charlie Silo, and these are the corresponding codes for this week. Once you input the code at a silo once per week, that's all you have to do it. So for that week. And I think the reset is, you can see right here, 8/11 is the reset, which is going to be like next Wednesday essentially. So this will last until about next Wednesday. And so what will happen is you go to a silo and you input the code alpha at Alpha Silo, and let's say you do this on the 5th. If you go back to Alpha Silo anytime before the codes reset or before the 11th, you won't have to put in the alpha code if you're at Alpha Silo, because you've already put it in at least once that time, at least once during that week. And the same thing applies to Bravo and Charlie. So you'll only have to input these codes once per week at the corresponding silo. Hopefully that made sense. But I haven't launched any nukes this week, so we'll go ahead and show you how inputting the code works and that sort of thing. But yeah, this website is super helpful for the nuke codes. Next thing that we're going to go ahead and check for is to see if the silos are up and running. So there is a personal cooldown, and then there is a silo cooldown. And in order to look at the silo cooldown, you can go ahead and go up here to the Holo tab, and in the Holo tab there should be something called the Miso Silo State Holotape. This is what it looks like right here. This is the name, and if you lose this holotape by some means, you're able to purchase it back at the Enclave, so no worries if you do lose it. You can just buy it back at the Enclave vendors, but you do get this as a reward for becoming a Enclave General, so hopefully you have this. But no worries if you don't, you can always buy it back. So we'll go ahead and activate this holotape, and it'll go ahead and load all three of the silos. So you see Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie, and it will say status and approximation. Time to open. So if you see 0 hours and 0 minutes, that means it is available to launch. If you see like 2 hours, 3 hours, then that means you have to wait that amount of time before the silo can be launched again on that server. So most of the time, server hopping is something that people will use to avoid that cooldown, or you can use your private world. Like if you join your private world, the 3 silos should be fresh to start all the time, because the private world is kind of like a fresh world. If you go on to a public server, sometimes there will be silos that have been used, you know, that sort of thing. And for the optimal strategy, if you want to do the 5 boss fights, you are going to need all 3 silos to be up and running, nice and fresh. So that's why I usually use private servers to launch that kind of combo. And then aside from the individual silo cooldown that is per server specific, there is a personal cooldown on silos. So you are not going to be able to just keep running alpha over and over again, and like server hopping won't avoid that either. And to my knowledge, there is no way for you to really view how long the silo cooldown, the personal silo cooldown is. The cooldown seems to be about 3 hours, which I think is also the same as the actual silo itself for going 3 hours. So if I launch at alpha, it will go to 3 hours on a cooldown, and then if I server hop, alpha might have a different server cooldown, but my personal cooldown will still be 3 hours. So hopefully that makes sense. But in this case, I haven't launched any nukes recently, and I'm on a private server, so all the silos are good, and I don't have any personal cooldowns. So we'll go ahead and get ready to run a silo. In case you don't have a keycard, since it is possible that you don't have any keycards at this point in the game, I'll go ahead and show you guys how to get keycards first before we actually do the silo running. So let's go ahead and head on over to the Enclave, which should be at the White Spring Bunker right here on the map, right below White Spring. Alright, once we're at the White Spring Bunker, we want to just go ahead and head on into the actual Enclave itself. Through here. And essentially we're going to be looking for a terminal that is going to allow us to track down a keycard drone. And we'll just go ahead and open the vault into the Enclave. Alright, and then once you're in the actual Enclave, just make a left through these doors and down the elevator. And then we're going to go ahead and make a sharp left after the elevator and just make another left down this way into the military wing. And then right here on our left is the military wing. Let's go ahead and go up into command. Now in command, we're going to come upon this terminal which says surveillance system terminal, and this is the terminal that we're going to go ahead and use to access nuclear keycards. So you can farm them using this method right here. And it's pretty much infinite farming, you just gotta do this quest though. And when you go to this terminal, you'll be able to accept a quest where you essentially have to track down a drone, and when you destroy the drone, it's gonna drop a keycard. I'll go ahead and show you guys that right now. So right here, hide and seek and destroy is what the quest is gonna be called. Modus has provided the rough location of one of the codes to the region's nuclear silos. Time to track it down. Search target area for the code piece. Alright, so I'm back at the surveillance system terminal, and we'll go ahead and initiate search for a nuclear keycard escort. I think when I first did this quest line, they probably automatically started the quest, but we're gonna go ahead and pick nuclear keycard escort, because that's the one that we actually need since we don't need the codes from the game method. And then right there on the top right corner, we can see hide and seek and destroy, recover a nuclear keycard from the cargo bot. So we're gonna go ahead and look on the map here where the cargo bot is. And I do want to mention that these cargo bots can be randomly found around the map even if you're not doing a quest. So if you ever see these cargo bots in the air, it's going to be one cargo bot with 3 vertibirds. Make sure to take them down. It's pretty much a free nuclear key card without even having to start the quest. But in the case that you need one right away, you can always start this quest line. And there you go. You can see them kind of spawned in right there, and they're pretty high up actually. Alright, so that's the little cargo bot right there. I'm like in a bunch of chaos. Where's the little cargo plane at? Sometimes it kind of flies away, but there it is. Alright, and I do recommend using a weapon that is like hit scan or something, or like bats, because it's a little hard to hit. But so we'll just use this Gatling gun, try to track this cargo bot down, and it kind of starts to fly away from you after you start hitting it. So sometimes it's a little bit of a chase. There we go. Once you destroy it, this little box will fall from where the cargo bot is, and then all you have to do is steal from it by using the pick lock. And there's no level of lock picking, so you won't have to switch out any of your perk cards or anything like that. Just a level 0 lock. And once you do lock pick it, you can grab the nuclear key card right there, and there's going to be some other items if you're interested. And this box will only last for a little bit, otherwise it self-destructs, so make sure to grab it. And like any other players that are around, you can also grab a key card from it. They'll have to lock pick it as well, I believe. Or maybe one person only has to lockpick it. But either way, we have the nuclear keycards, so now let's go ahead and run a silo. Let me go ahead and show you guys where the actual silos are. So there's 3 of them. Charlie is down here by the R&G processing services, and it's kind of to the left of Foundation. Up here is going to be Site Alpha, which is kind of near this B, or above this National Isolated Radio Array. And then at the very top is going to be Site Bravo, and this one is underneath the Palace of the Winding Path, or to the right of this little 61 right here. All the silos are the same. They, in terms of like how to run the silo, or like how to clear the silo and launch the nuke. So I'm just going to use any one of these as an example. We'll just go ahead and go to Bravo. Alright, so let's go ahead and head on into the silo. Every single silo is going to have some sort of elevator that will lead down into it, and it's always going to be an elevator with like a white door like this and an overseer's cache nearby. So we'll go here, and since you're an Enclave General, this hand scanner should work, and you should head right down into the silo. As soon as you enter a silo, there is going to be a quest that's going to start, and it will kind of give you a step-by-step process on how to launch the nuke. But in my experience, this quest marker kind of sucks. It doesn't really tell you how to run the nuke like it probably should. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys how to actually do it. For running silos, I recommend having a explosive weapon, radiation protection, you need level 3 lockpicking, and level 3 hacking. And with those 4 requirements, also a nuclear keycard and the nuclear code for the silo that you're running. So I guess with that, like 6 requirements, you should be able to run silos. And I also want to say that with running a silo, there are multiple approaches that you can do. There is the run and gun method if you're tanky enough to just kind of sprint through the silo and tank a lot of the damage, and you don't really stop to clear out that many enemies. And that's the method that I'm going to be using since I'm a power armor user. I'm a bloodied build, you know, I've got emergency protocols and nerd rage, so I'm pretty tough. But the other method is like kind of like a slow and steady method, where like if you're not using power armor and you're using a like stealth build, like a stealth commando build, then instead you'll use stealth to your advantage instead of just stomping around in here. Alright, so some perk cards that will help you here is going to be, you're going to need the lockpicking in the perception tree, and you're going to need the hacking in the intelligence tree. You can equip the hacking a little bit later, but the lockpicking is going to be a bit more on the urgent side, so I'm going to take off Skeet Shooter and put on the lockpicking. There we go. If you get the legendary perk cards, legendary perks that can help for silo running would mostly be electric absorption if you're a power armor user, because everything in here is a robot that's going to be shooting you with energy damage. And then also if you have master infiltrator, then going through the hacking and pick locking will be extremely fast. But let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that you want to go ahead and do is go into the mess hall area, and this is kind of like the beginning of the silo. There's going to be lots of laser turrets and lots of robots, but since I'm doing the run and gun method, I'm kind of ignore them for the most part. Whereas if you were a stealth build, you would mostly just want to be crouch walking through these guys and just stealthing past them. And the first thing that we're going to be looking for is a blue key card that has multiple random spawn locations throughout the first area. So I'm kind of just like checking counters. And as you run more silos, you'll kind of get used to all the spawn points, and you'll kind of know areas to check. Here we go. So this is it right here. This is a old biometric ID card, and it just looks like a blue card. So we can pick that up. So that's the first step. Now that we have that, we need to go ahead and make our way to the scanner. And the scanner is going to be right here in this room. So if you were to walk all the way down at the end of the hallway and make a left, the scanner room is here. And for the scanner room, you know, if you're in power armor, you're gonna have to exit power armor in order to scan. And you just go in here into the biometric scanner. Alright, so now that we have the blue card, we got ourselves scanned. Now we want to go ahead and duplicate this key card, so we're going to go to the card duplicator. And I do want to say, like, with the stealth method, I've ran silos using a bow build, a stealth bow build, so it's definitely doable. You don't have to have, like, a really optimal build in order to run a silo. You just maybe might take a bit longer to clear it, but honestly, at the end of the day, you can still run it. So we're going to take a little detour here. And we're going to go down the opposite hall, and right here is the key card duplicator. So in this room, you're going to go ahead and swipe, and this is after you have the blue key card. So now we swipe it, and then we access the terminal, and at the terminal we hit fabricate ID, wait for it to go through, and make sure in the top left you see all this stuff removed, and then you see the biometric ID added. And now that we have that, we can go ahead and go back to where this quest marker is. To the left right here, and we can swipe. Once you swipe, that is going to go ahead and make this grid unlock, in which case we can actually go through it. And that is the first step of running a silo. Alright, so we go through this door, and we can go ahead and sprint down this hall. And you just want to sprint all the way to the end of this hallway. And since I'm doing the run and gun method, I'm just gonna ignore all these laser turrets. Now this next section, before you enter this room, before you enter the powerhouse, make sure you have radiation protection. So if you're using the power armor method, run and gun, you're gonna already have rad protection built into your power armor. But if you are not using power armor, make sure you have like a Chinese stealth suit, which is what I used for stealthing this part. I think a Chinese stealth suit is really good. If you can't afford to use a Chinese stealth suit, you could also use a hazmat suit. And this is where lockpicking is going to become important as well. But Chinese stealth suit definitely helps sneak past this part, since there's so many things trying to kill you. And right here, we just hug the left wall, and then we're going to go to the first door. And this door right here is going to be a lockpick for level 3. And this will go ahead and let us into this little side room, and this is actually how you can bypass the reactor lockdown. And then in this room, there are 2 laser turrets here. We'll take those guys out. And then this is where you're going to need level 3 hacking, so I'll go ahead and put those on right now. And then we can go ahead and access the security command terminal, and I'm just going to do my little hacking method, which is I just click random things, and I let RNG hack for me. And I always leave 1 life, so there's no terminal cooldown, and then I just go back into it. And eventually you're going to pick the right one. And then you can override the reactor security lockdown. Confirm. There we go. So we went ahead and overrid it, which is going to open this door for us. And while this is opening, I'll just go ahead and switch my cards back. There we go. And now we can run through this part of the silo. So we just make a right, and we sprint down here, and we make a left, make a right, and we make a left in here. This room no longer has radiation, but you are going to need a explosive weapon. And this is, generally speaking, a weapon with the explosive legendary effect, or like an auto grenade launcher, you know, a Gauss weapon, something like that. And I'll go ahead and show you guys why. And if I'm in the power armor build, you can face tank this room with my current power armor build. If you are on the squishier side, or you're like a stealth commando or stealth build, I recommend using the Chinese stealth suit to stealth through this room, and like kind of like weaving in and out of stealth. But I'm just gonna run and gun it. And all these panels right here that you see, they're kind of like glowing red. You just want to shoot them with an explosive weapon, and all the panels are gonna fall off. This is the easiest method to clear this section of the silo. And in the top right, you're gonna see the quest says to destroy the mainframe. So you destroy some of those in that room, this door will open up, you destroy some of them in this room, and then the next section will open up. There we go, it opened, and then we'll destroy more here, these ones here, and you just shoot all these panels, and they're all gonna fall off. Just a few shots each, and this is just a 2-star explosive Gatling gun to do my silo running. And you can see I'm tanking a lot of attacks right now, but my build is strong enough to hold it and like not die. So we'll just go on past here. So after you destroy all of the mainframes, this door right here is going to be unlocked. And that's pretty much where you want to just go ahead and run through. And then you go down these steps, and you run down this hallway. Careful, there's an Assaultron down here usually. And then you make a left, and you go up. And then through here you make another left, and then this is where it gets a little bit tedious. But then you can sprint through into this room, open here, and then this is the next step of the silo running. We can go ahead and kill this robot really quick and loot that. And this room you do want to clear, even if you're going to be running and gunning or stealthing. I do recommend clearing it just because the turrets can get a bit annoying while you're doing your thing in here. I do want to mention, like, while you're in the silo, robots are going to be infinitely spawning, so. Alright, so for this next part, there's going to be these control panels right here, and these are all damaged cores, so you can just go ahead and remove all of them, and there's going to be 15 in total. The fastest way to do this is to take these damaged cores, all 15 of them, to a tinkerer's workbench and repairing them. Or you can look around this room and loot mainframe cores that are already repaired. So I'll go ahead and do a mix of both for the purpose of this video. So I looted that one. So now I only need to repair 14 of them. And the tinkerer's workbench is going to be in the back room right here. Past this terminal. Right here in the back. You just go ahead and open it. Alright, and there's a power armor chassis spawn, so you can grab a free core if you want. But this is the tinkerer's workbench that you're going to be interested in. And another mainframe core there, so that's already 2. And then I found another one here, so that's 3 out of 15. So now we only have to repair 12. So if you don't have the materials to repair, then feel free to scavenge around this room in this area and just find all 15 cores. But if you have the materials, it'll make it a lot faster to just repair them. And so what I usually do is I find as many as I can on the way to the tinkerer's bench, and then I repair the difference. So we found 3, so we just need to repair 12. And it's going to be under quest items, mainframe core, and then I can just repair 12 of these. And you can see it's going to use circuitry and steel. So it's not too expensive, but yeah, it starts to add up in terms of the circuitry at least. And from here, now that we found 3 regular cores and we repaired the other 12, we have a total of 15 mainframe cores that we can just slot into here. Alright, and once all 15 cores are in place, we can access the facility's mainframe, and then we can hit continue, and then we can do security door control. Open door, and then that's it for this section of the silo. So we're pretty much going to go into the last section now. And I do want to mention, like, if you have any spare mainframe cores on you, make sure to drop them because they're really heavy. So go to MISC, and I'm just going to sort by weight. At the very top, we're probably going to see, yeah, damaged mainframe cores, like just 3 of them is already 5 pounds. So we're going to drop those. And then we'll go through this way, and then we're going to make a left, and right here is launch silo. So this is the last phase, which is pretty much the control room, and we call this phase like the prep phase. So we'll go ahead and go into here, and we'll go out into this room, and as soon as you walk in, this is where the lights are going to turn on. And I think the biggest part of this phase that people miss is to make sure you actually start the prep. If you don't start the prep's not going to start. So let's go ahead and go to this terminal and initiate the prep. And you can scroll down and hit initiate launch prep. Alright, so now prep has officially started, and there's going to be a little progress bar. And essentially for this phase, we just have to defend, I think, 4 robots that will come out staggered, while robots are infinitely spawning to try and kill these launch robots. So that's pretty much how this works. There we go. So right there we see defend the section chiefs 1 out of 1, and this is what the section chief looks like. If a section chief gets destroyed, you can go ahead and replace them at their corresponding terminal. And you just pretty much defeat the waves of robots that try and attack you and the section chiefs while you wait for the prep to finish. And the section chiefs can sometimes get stuck. If they do get stuck, then you just have to wait for them to get destroyed, and then you have to replace them. That's pretty much the only workaround. So sometimes this section chief will get stuck like right here, like right before going to the actual terminal, and then progress won't start. So you just gotta let the robots beat it up and destroy it completely, and then you can replace the section chief, and the silo prep will continue as normal. I also want to mention that if you die at any point in the silo, you will respawn at the beginning, and then you'll just have to go through again, and any steps that you already completed will stay completed, any doors you already unlocked will stay unlocked, that sort of thing. So you just kind of have to walk back to wherever you last left off. And you can see there's like a lot of laser turrets in this room and robots that are going to spawn. But all you really need is at least 1 section chief to be working, and you can see right now we have 3 going. I just want to show you guys an example of the terminal to like replace them. So like right here, there's going to be a robot fabrication terminal. So if this section sheaf that spawns from here got destroyed, then you can just go to the corresponding terminal to like respawn them. There we go. And as soon as premp is complete, you know, all the lights are going to dim and the robots will stop spawning, and you pretty much finish the quest line to launch the nuke, which is mission countdown Bravo, depending on like what silo you're in. Alright, so this is where the actual nuke launching happens, and we'll go ahead and break down like the best spots, and I'll talk about the nukes and the different boss fights in the different nuke zones. So this is the launch area. The first thing that you want to go ahead and do is look to your left, and this is where you swipe your keycard.
Accepted.
There we go, keycard is accepted. Next part is to put it in the launch code and make sure that you put in the correct code for the correct silo. You know, we are currently in Bravo silo. So let's go up to the keypad, and I'm just gonna go ahead and pull up the website and have it on the side here. That way I can go ahead and put in the code. If you get the code wrong, it is gonna kick you out and it will consume the key card, meaning you'll have to put another key card if you want to try again for the correct launch code. So make sure you get this code correct. 442. It's gonna flash green, which means it's correct. If it flashes red, that means it's incorrect, and you'll have to swipe again and attempt a new code. If you attempt to enter a code, but it just says you already put one in, then that means you've already ran this silo at least once during the week, in which case you don't need to put in the code again. But now the system is armed, so now we can go ahead and access the targeting computer, and this is where you get to see the map of where you can actually launch your nuke. So this little green section on the far left is the safe zone, so you can't nuke this zone at all. And for the controls on PC, enter is to make your target, so you can see target unavailable. This launch would hit a protected zone, so you can't hit the forest essentially. But as of right now, as of August 4th, 2021, we only have 2 endgame bosses, or 2 blast zone bosses, one of them being Earle Williams and another one being the Scorched Beast Queen, which is probably the most popular one. So let's talk about Scorched Beast Queen first. The Scorched Beast Queen is in the bottom right map, the far bottom right map, and it spawns if Fissure Site Prime is nuked. So as long as Fissure Site Prime, the icon, is completely covered by your blast zone, then this boss will spawn. The optimal route, or the most optimal launch for Fissure Site Prime, is for the blast zone to hit Fissure Site Prime and to hit the overgrown Sundew Grove, because there's a chance that Earl can spawn in this forest. But it should not cover Drop Site V9. Drop Site V9 should be left on the outside of the nuke. And this allows us to do the boss fight and pull the queen out of the blast zone so that we can actually do the queen fight without being in the radiation. So we can use like this little line right here and these 4 squares, and we can kind of line it up. And if I line it up correctly, boom, the grove, the forest is in the blast zone, Fissure Site Prime is in the blast zone, but V9 is right on this outskirt of the blast zone. So this means like it's outside the radiation. So this right here would look like a pretty good nuke. You'd get the forest, the queen would spawn, and that'd be great for the Scorched Beast Queen. Now let's go ahead and talk about the Earl. Earle Williams requires the Mononga mine to be completely covered, like the icon in the blast zone, and this is more towards the top of the map, above the power plant, kind of like right here. I don't really know how else to describe it. It's pretty close to Site Bravo actually. So for this one, the optimal nuke placement is going to be a lot harder, but we'll go ahead and try. But the only thing that's important here is that the entire mine icon is in the nuke, and then Earle Williams will spawn. So let's go ahead and test a couple spots. So this is too far. I try lining it with the squares so it's easier to remember. So this nuke right here would technically work, but the most optimal nuke would be so that the blast, or this little yellow edge, is like right at the top of the pickaxe. And this is so when you're done with the nuke event, you can walk out of the radiation zone like super easily. So let's go ahead and see if we can get an example of that. This right here would be a little risky. I don't know if this would spawn the boss, so let's go ahead and go a little bit higher. So something like this would be like the perfect nuke. If you wanted to be even safer, I would say a little bit higher like that, where like the entire icon's underneath this yellow. So this makes it so that Earl will spawn, and then once you're done with the event, you could walk out of the blast zone and not receive any radiation, and it'd be like super convenient. So yeah, this is like the optimal blast zone for Earl. And let's go ahead and talk about the combos. If you want to do the 3 nuke combo, where you're launching 3 nukes on one server to do 5 boss fights, then what you do is first you launch on Earl, and so Earl Williams will spawn. You go ahead and do the Earl event, and then after the Earl event is done, you run another silo, and you launch that nuke at the Queen, so at Fisher Site Prime, and when that nuke lands, it's gonna spawn the Queen, but it's also gonna spawn Earl. So now we did an Earl, and then we did a Queen and another Earl spawn, so that's already 3 bosses. And then for the 3rd nuke on the server, you're gonna nuke the Queen again, which will spawn another Queen and another Earl, so that's 5 bosses total. This probably isn't intended, but it's just how the game works in terms of like, I guess, how the boss spawns. So yeah, if you have a server where you can launch 3 nukes and you know, you want to do 5 boss fights to kind of maximize how much you can get out of your 3 nukes, that is the optimal method. You launch on Earl and then you do Queen and then Queen, and then that server is pretty much done for nukes. Things that I would like to mention is that when you do this method, make sure that you go and you do the Earl event first, because the Queen can sometimes have an irregular flying pattern, and the Earl event only stays up for a little bit, so traveling to the Earl can be a little tricky to like actually start the boss fight. Sometimes you might miss the Earl if you do the Queen first, so usually what I'll do is I'll do Earl nuke, do the Earl event, launch on the Queen, do the Earl event, and then the Queen event, launch on the Queen, do the Earl event, and then the Queen event, for a total of 5 boss events, only using 3 nukes. If you think you want to risk it for the biscuit and your server has enough DPS, then you could try and do the Queen first. And this method is usually best on private servers or with people that you can communicate with, because sometimes it can get a little messy if you do this on a public server, and people will most likely travel to the Queen first, you know, and it gets a little messed up. But you can always give it a try and see how the server responds. And we'll go ahead and talk about the different fights now and kind of like their mechanics. So with the Queen, once you launch on the Queen, she's going to come out of the Fisher Site Prime, and then she will have a flying mechanic and a landing mechanic. So in order to make her land, she will land randomly, or if people use like specific perk cards to damage her wings. I'll go ahead and show you an example. Like for heavy weapons builds, you can use One Gun Army, and you can have a 12% chance to cripple a limb. So if you're using One Gun Army and you use a heavy weapon and you shoot her wings while she's flying and you cripple her wing, she will be forced to land, and then when she lands, she spawns a group of adds or mobs or enemies around her that are usually scorched, and then that's like your DPS phase when she's grounded. And you know, she's a legendary enemy, so she's guaranteed to drop a 3-star legendary item, and she's also gonna give you some like ultra sight plans as a possibility, and like some ultra sight, and the event reward will be flex and legendary cores. I think it's 5 legendary cores, which is pretty nice. And then yeah, that's pretty much the mechanics for Scorched Queen. I would say bringing a Cryolator is also pretty good to slow her down, so Cryolator and anything that gives you chance to cripple a limb is pretty good against the Queen. Now for the Earl mechanics, which are a bit more complicated, but when you spawn a Earl, it will be a instanced fight, whereas the Queen is not going to be an instanced fight, so like anybody and everybody on the server can just fast travel to the area. And with the Queens, I do recommend being there a little bit early before the nuke drops if you are going to do a Queen event on a public server, because sometimes public servers kill Queens really fast, and if you fast travel after she already spawned, then there's a chance when you get there she's dead. You'll still get the event completion, but you won't be able to get that free 3-star and like loot the Scorched Queen. Now in regards to Earl, you spawn the Earl event. It's an instance location. Each Earl instance can fit up to 2 public teams worth of people, so that's 8 people total. If you're on a private world, there's only going to be 1 instance of Earl, so everybody on the private world will be able to fit inside that 1 Earl. But if you're on a public world, it's usually split up into like 2 to 3 Earls, I believe. So you spawn at the Earl, and there'll be like a little bit of a wait time, and then the rubble will fall, and then you can begin the fight. I wish I could show you guys the Earl room, but I guess I could if I launched on Earl right now, but should I just launch on Earl? Alright, so Earl's a bit more complicated, so I'm going to go ahead and explain it in person, whereas the Scorched Queen event I think is a lot more straightforward. So we're going to go ahead and head on over to this Earl nuke. I'll go ahead and try to set it up so that the blast zone is very nice, and I'll show you guys like after the event what it looks like when you launch it really well. So we want it like right here, like in the center of this square. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and confirm the launch right there. And once you confirm a launch, it'll say quest started, death from above, and it'll kind of warn the entire server that somebody has launched a nuke. And you'll be able to see the missile actually launch from the silo right here, like visually. And if you exit the silo and go to the top, you'll see the silo actually leave at the top as well. It's pretty cool to witness. And I think there's actually like an exit that you can use to see the silo launch. I forget where it is, but we'll just watch it from the interior for now. Alright, so you can see now here on the map that when you launch the nuke like that, the blast zone is going to be covering the mine, and then you'll be able to walk out of the mine. It's like a perfect little spot right there. And we still have 15 seconds until the nuke touches down. So, you know, you can kind of prep your ammo, that sort of thing. I will say Earl is a lot harder fight than the Scorched Queen. It's more of a bullet sponge, and there's going to be a couple mechanics and lots of layer actions, or that's like a D&D term, but there's essentially a lot of things that happen during the fight in just like the fight arena or the fight map that can kill you. There's going to be falling fire, there's going to be a drill, there's going to be like poison areas, and yeah, it's pretty lethal. So right here, the nuke dropped and Colossal Problem has started. This event will only be here for a small amount of time, so that's why I recommend doing Earl first before Queen if you're doing the Nuke Combo, because once this disappears, the only other way to get to the event is to fast travel to a teammate that is already at the event using the social tab, and you have to be in the same casual team or same public team. And the way you do that is go to social, click on your team, and then you should be able to click right here, team, and then you can click on the person, and then there will be something that says fast travel, and you do that, and then you can fast travel into the Earl when the Earl event is no longer there. But since, you know, we're here and we're able to actually travel to the event through the normal method, we won't have to use the fast travel to teammate method. So I'll go ahead and fast travel to the event, and I'll kind of show you guys around. This fight will give you a lot of screws from the Wendigos, and it's kind of like the main method that people use to grind screws. And so when you spawn in, it's going to be in this little instanced mine, and there's going to be a couple Wendigos that'll pop out. So as you run down this way, there's always going to be a Wendigo that spawns right here. And then there'll be 2 more Wendigos over in this area. And so yeah, so this is the Earl fight. Right here, we only have like 3 minutes for the rubble to clear, and after that 3-minute passes, that's when the event disappears, so you'll no longer be able to join the event. Unless you use the fast travel method to get to a teammate. And there's gonna be a Tinker's workbench here, or an armor's workbench, my bad, and a weapons workbench. No Tinker's workbench, unfortunately. So the rewards for this one, for this event, is gonna be a cursed item, which is honestly usually not that good. But cursed items, I think, have worse durability but better base damage, and they can only spawn as like harpoon guns, pickaxes, shovels, like weapons that people don't use. I think broadsider as well. Like this is just like those 4 weapons or something. So yeah, cursed weapons are kind of negligible from this event, but it's just like kind of I guess a cool thing to have. It'll give flex, and it'll also give you the 8 legendary cores, which is nice for legendary crafting. But the biggest thing is that you'll actually be able to get a guaranteed 3-star legendary from Earl, and you'll also get a bunch of loot from the Wendigos. And I do want to mention that Earl is a bit glitchy compared to the Scorched Queen. Sometimes Earl can goo pile, or it can phase through the wall or through the floor. So sometimes when you do Earl, it's going to be a little unlucky. Also, if you die right as Earl dies, you will be spawned back at the top, and this area will be closed again, so you won't be able to go down the original way, but there's going to be an alternate path in the tunnel that you'll be able to walk back down to, and then you can loot Earl again. So yeah, those are like things that can happen. One thing that really does suck though is if you die after Earl has died, not like right as Earl has died, then you will be spawned outside the mine, in which case you won't be able to walk back down and loot Earl or any of the Wendigos. So in that case, yeah, you'll miss out on the loot. But yeah, we'll go ahead and do this Earl fight. I don't know if I'll be able to solo it though. This is my first time attempting it, but attempting it solo. We're gonna go ahead and buff up really quick. And you'll go ahead and do this drop down. If you don't have power armor, I recommend using the little halfway point so that you don't die from the fall damage. And then this right here, that's like radiation, which will just damage you, or poison. This drill will kill you, and then occasionally a random fire will spawn from the roof. And I'm gonna go ahead and use my legacy in order to solo this because I feel like I won't be able to otherwise. But this right here is Earl, and it's got 3 heads, so 3 crit spots, and the mechanics are it's gonna be Earl, and then Wendigos will spawn as additional adds along with the random fire falling. Earl has like a CC scream attack and a poison attack, a poison ranged attack, and also melee attacks. So to make whenever you see like that ball glow on the side of Earl's head, you want to go ahead and shoot it, and it will pop the little like bubble, and that'll always be helpful. And I think that has to do with its spit attack. But we'll go ahead and just keep shooting its feet, and this is the CC move, which makes all players like nearby kind of turn away. And then you'll also have these Wendigos spawning, and this is pretty much the entire boss fight. We'll just go ahead and reload, and every time you complete the event, you'll also get a item that drops from Earl, and you can use that to craft an item called Liquid Courage, which pretty much makes you immune from the CC Scream effect, which is going to happen right now. So once you drink Liquid Courage, it'll make you immune from this, which just gives you more DPS uptime. So that's pretty much all the mechanics of Earl, so I'll just kind of go ahead and show you guys the fight. If you die, you'll just spawn back at the top of the waiting room or the mine area, and then you can just drop back down. But depending on when you die, it can be a little unlucky, as I described earlier. And, you know, the Wendigos that spawn in here are going to scale with how many people are doing the fight, so more people in here, the more Wendigos. Just like that, Earl is dead, and once Earl dies, you just want to go ahead and loot Earl. Sometimes it'll be useful for teammates to like kind of motion or emote where the Earl is, so if you want you can do this emote where the Earl body is and kind of help people out who are looking for where the loot is. Wendigos will continue to spawn, but I usually take this time to go ahead and loot, or you can escape the mine. If you escape the mine, you get an extra reward, but most of the time I don't think it's worth it, so I would rather just loot all of this good loot from the Wendigo spawn. So yeah, I just take these 2 minutes to loot. Make sure if you are in a non-power armor build that you have radiation protection, because after this event ends, or after that little escape the mine segment, you're going to be teleported into the blast zone, so you will get some radiation exposure. But with the way that I place the nuke, you'll be able to walk out of the radiation zone super easily. And I'll go ahead and demonstrate that once we finish the fight. I died, I accidentally blew myself up a little too early, so if you die like after Earl is dead, you'll be spawned outside the event area, or not outside the event area, but outside the mine. And in the case where you do die and you're spawned outside the mine, make sure to still stay near the mine, otherwise you won't get the event rewards because you would have technically left the event. So like right here is where the mine area is, and you get the 3-star, and this is like what the outside of the mine looks like. So right now I'm in the blast zone, but if I was to walk this way, I'm outside the blast zone just like that. So that's how convenient it is, and to actually just exit the blast zone, you can leave your survival tent here, and you will no longer be taking radiation. And that's why this is like the optimal nuke spot. That way you can spawn the Earl, but really easily leave the blast zone just like that. And this is what you can use the vocal sack to craft the item that will make it so that you won't get feared, called Liquid Courage. But I usually just scrap it since I'm too lazy to make Liquid Courage, and then we can just go ahead and stash everything else in our stash box. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the Earl fight, guys, and for launching a nuke, and for the Queen fight. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know in the comment section below. Any additional questions, or if I missed anything, let me know. And yeah, any positive or negative feedback is always welcome. And until next time, happy nuking.